Chosen one, the lens of rejection is breaking today. You have seen yourself through loss for far too long. God didn't call you to barely survive. He called you to manage His power. Your past didn't cancel your calling. It refined your discernment for the future. And that changes everything. Because if you keep looking at your life through what hurt you, you will keep shrinking yourself to match it. You will keep interpreting every situation through loss, through rejection, through what went wrong. And without realizing it, you won't just remember your past, you will live from it. But you were never meant to live from your wounds. You were meant to learn from them. There is a difference. One keeps you reacting. The other trains you to lead. Because survival is not your final identity. It was just a season. And if you stay there too long, you will start mistaking protection for limitation. You will hold back, second guess, and hesitate. Not because you're incapable, but because you're still seeing yourself as someone who is trying not to be hurt again. But that version of you is not who you are anymore. You are not just someone who went through pain. You are someone who was trained by it. And if you're honest, this identity didn't just appear randomly. It was built over time, layer by layer, through real experiences that left a mark on you. You didn't choose to see yourself through rejection. Life trained you to. There were moments when things didn't work out the way you expected, when people didn't show up the way you needed, when opportunities slipped away just when you thought they were finally yours. And each of those moments on their own may have seemed manageable, but together they started forming a pattern, not just in your circumstances, but in your perception. You began to interpret new situations through what had already happened. So when something went wrong, it didn't feel like a single event, it felt like confirmation. When someone didn't choose you, it didn't feel isolated, it felt familiar. And over time, that familiarity started shaping your identity more than you realized. You didn't just experience rejection, you started expecting it. That's where the weight comes from. Because now, it's not just about healing from the past. It's about how the past is still influencing how you move in the present. You become more cautious, more guarded, more selective, but not always in a healthy way. You start holding back parts of yourself, not because you lack capacity, but because you've learned to associate openness with pain. You prepare yourself for disappointment before anything even happens, as if staying one step ahead will somehow protect you from feeling it again. And to a certain extent, it does protect you. It keeps you from being caught off guard. It reduces the intensity of potential hurt. It gives you a sense of control in situations that once felt unpredictable. But at the same time, it quietly limits you. Because when your identity is built around avoiding pain, you don't just avoid what's harmful. You also begin to avoid what requires vulnerability, trust, and presence. You hesitate when something actually aligns. You question things that once would have felt clear. You withdraw emotionally even when nothing is wrong, simply because you've learned that staying fully engaged comes with risk. And the hardest part is, you often don't even realize you're doing it. It feels normal. It feels like wisdom. It feels like you're just being careful. But underneath that, there is exhaustion. Because you are constantly managing yourself, constantly analyzing, constantly trying to predict what might go wrong so you can protect yourself in advance. And that level of internal tension makes it hard to fully move forward. It keeps you in a state of partial engagement, never fully in, never fully out. So even when your life starts to shift, even when new opportunities appear, even when things are different, you're still responding from an old place. And that creates a cycle. You hold back till things don't fully develop till it reinforces your belief till you hold back again. Not because you're incapable, but because you adapted to survive. And that version of you was necessary at one point. It helped you endure. It helped you get through situations that required strength and awareness. But what protected you then is not designed to lead you now. Because survival is not your final identity. It was only the stage that prepared you for something greater. So here's where everything begins to shift. And it's not by pretending your past didn't happen, but by redefining what it actually meant. Your pain was real, your experiences were real, and what you went through mattered more than most people understand. But what it means about you, That's where the correction has to happen. Because if you keep interpreting your past as proof that you are someone who gets rejected, overlooked, or hurt, then you will unconsciously carry that identity into every new opportunity, every new relationship, every new season. You won't just remember your past, you will project it forward. But what if your past was never meant to define your identity, only to develop your awareness? Because you didn't go through everything you went through to become fragile. You went through it to become discerning. And that difference changes how you move. Fragility makes you avoid, hesitate, and withdraw. Discernment makes you aware, intentional, and selective. Fragility shrinks your world to keep you safe. Discernment allows you to move through the world with clarity, without losing yourself in the process. When you look back honestly, you can already see the evidence of this. You notice things earlier now. You sense when something is off before it becomes obvious. You recognize patterns in people, in situations, in environments that you didn't catch before. You can feel when something looks right on the surface, but doesn't sit right internally. That didn't come from nowhere. That came from experience. That came from being in situations where you had to learn the hard way, where you had to pay attention, where you had to adjust. You learned how to read between the lines. You learned how to observe energy, not just words. You learned how to protect your peace without needing external validation. Those are not traits of someone broken. Those are traits of someone trained. But here's where most people get stuck. They take that awareness and use it only to avoid. They become so focused on not getting hurt again that they stop fully engaging with anything. They see every situation through caution, through distance, through emotional withdrawal. And while that might protect them in the short term, it also keeps them from stepping into anything meaningful in the long term. Because awareness without action becomes limitation. But awareness with intention becomes power. That's the shift you're being called into. Not to ignore what you learned, but to use it differently. Instead of asking, how do I avoid this happening again? You begin asking, how do I choose better because I recognize this now? That question moves you out of reaction and into direction. It places you back in control, not of what happens to you, but of how you respond and what you allow into your life. And that's where your identity begins to elevate. You're no longer someone trying to protect yourself from life. You're someone who understands how to navigate it. You're no longer defined by patterns. You recognize them and choose differently. You're no longer shrinking to avoid pain. You're expanding with awareness. Because your future is not determined by what happened to you. It is determined by how you interpret it and how you move forward from it. Yes, things didn't work out before. Yes, people didn't always show up the way you needed. Yes, there were moments that shaped you in ways you didn't expect. But none of that disqualified you. It refined you. It sharpened your discernment. It prepared you to move with a level of awareness that most people never develop. And when you truly understand that, something shifts internally. You stop carrying your past like a weight that holds you back, and you start using it like a tool that moves you forward. Because you were never meant to stay in the identity of someone who survived. You were always meant to become someone who leads, with clarity, with strength, and with discernment that was earned through everything you've been through. At some point, this stops being about what happened to you, and starts becoming about who you choose to be because of it. Because if you keep defining yourself through your wounds, you will always operate from a place of defense. You will measure your life by what hurt you, filter your decisions through what went wrong, and unconsciously shrink your capacity just to feel safe. But that is not the identity you were called to carry. You were not built to remain in survival mode. You were built to manage something greater. And that requires a completely different way of seeing yourself. Because a victim identity focuses on what was taken, what was lost, what didn't happen. It constantly looks backward for explanation, for validation, for proof. But a steward identity, someone who manages, who leads, who carries responsibility, looks forward. It asks a different question. Not, why did this happen to me? But what has this equipped me to handle now? That shift alone changes your entire posture. Because now, you are no longer reacting to life. You are responding with awareness. And that is power. When you begin to see yourself as someone who has been trained instead of someone who has been damaged, your behavior changes. You stop moving cautiously out of fear and start moving intentionally out of clarity. You stop waiting for things to feel safe and start trusting your ability to navigate whatever comes. You stop shrinking yourself to avoid discomfort and start expanding your capacity to handle it. That's identity elevation. It's not pretending your past didn't affect you. It's deciding that it will not define the limits of your future. Because here's the truth most people avoid. If you stay in the identity of someone who was hurt, you will continue to look for evidence that supports that identity. You will interpret neutral situations as negative. You will assume patterns where there are none. You will hesitate even when things are aligned. And slowly, you will recreate the same emotional experience, even in different circumstances. Not because life is repeating itself, but because your perception is. That's why this shift is not optional. It's necessary. You have to start seeing yourself as someone who can handle responsibility, not just someone who is trying to avoid pain. Because what you are stepping into requires stability. It requires clarity. It requires a level of internal authority that cannot exist if you are still defining yourself through what broke you. You are not just someone who went through difficult experiences. You are someone who developed awareness through them. And awareness is not weakness. It is a tool. It allows you to see what others miss. It allows you to choose what others fall into. It allows you to move with intention instead of reaction. But only if you actually step into that identity. Because if you don't, you will keep minimizing yourself. You will downplay your growth. You will act smaller than what you've become, simply because you're still attached to an outdated version of who you were. And that's where many people stay stuck. They grow, but they don't update their identity. They change internally, but still see themselves the same way. They become stronger, but still move like they are fragile. And that disconnect creates frustration. Because your life starts asking more from you, but you don't see yourself as someone who can give more yet. So the shift is this. You stop introducing yourself through your pain. You stop defining yourself by what didn't work. You stop carrying labels that no longer match who you are becoming. And you start stepping into a different identity. Someone who is responsible for what they carry. Someone who is capable of managing pressure. Someone who is able to lead their life with awareness instead of fear. Because that is who you are now. Not the version that was hurt. Not the version that was overlooked. But the version that learned, adapted, and grew. And when you fully accept that identity, something stabilizes inside you. You stop overreacting. You stop second-guessing. You stop shrinking. Because you are no longer trying to protect a fragile version of yourself. You are operating from a grounded one. And that is when your life begins to change. Not because your circumstances suddenly become perfect, but because you are no longer the same person responding to them. You are someone who can handle them. So how does this identity actually change in real life? Because this is not just a mindset shift. It's a system that has to be practiced, reinforced, and lived out daily. You don't move from a victim identity to a steward identity just by understanding it once. You move by consistently choosing it, especially in moments where your old patterns want to take over. The victim identity is not random. It was built through repetition, through repeated experiences where you felt hurt, overlooked, or powerless. Over time, your mind created patterns to protect you. It learned to anticipate disappointment. It learned to stay guarded. It learned to interpret situations quickly so you wouldn't be caught off guard again. And those patterns became automatic. You didn't have to think about them. They just happened. So if that identity was built through repetition, it has to be replaced the same way. Through new repetition, through new decisions, through new interpretations. It starts with awareness. You have to catch yourself in real time. When something triggers you, when you feel that familiar urge to withdraw, to assume the worst, to protect yourself before anything even happens, you pause. Not to suppress it, but to observe it. You recognize, this is how I used to respond. And that awareness alone creates space between you and the pattern. Then comes the decision. Instead of reacting automatically, you choose intentionally. You ask yourself, if I were operating from strength, from clarity, from responsibility, how would I respond right now? And the answer will almost always feel different from your default reaction. It may feel uncomfortable at first, because it requires you to act from a version of yourself that is still stabilizing. But that's exactly how the shift happens. Because every time you choose differently, you reinforce a new identity. Not in theory, in action. You also have to change the way you interpret situations. This is critical. The same event can either reinforce your old identity or strengthen your new one, depending on how you see it. If something doesn't work out, you can interpret it as rejection, as proof that nothing changes, as confirmation of your past. Or you can interpret it as information, as redirection, as something that is refining your awareness. The event is the same. The meaning is different. And the meaning is what shapes your identity. Another part of the system is boundaries. A victim identity often struggles with boundaries because it is focused on being accepted, on avoiding conflict, on keeping things stable. But a steward identity understands that not everything is meant to stay. It becomes more selective. It chooses what to engage with and what to step away from, not out of fear, but out of alignment. That means you stop over-explaining yourself. You stop staying in situations that drain you. You stop tolerating things that go against what you've learned. And that reinforces self-respect. Because every boundary you set tells your mind, I am no longer operating from that old place. And over time, something shifts. Your reactions become slower, more intentional. Your thoughts become clearer, less reactive. Your decisions become stronger, less influenced by fear. And what once felt automatic starts to feel optional. That's when you know the system is working. Because you're no longer being controlled by what happened to you. You're choosing who you become because of it. And when this shift is truly happening, not just intellectually, but internally, you will start to notice clear signs that your identity is no longer rooted in survival, but in authority. These signs are not dramatic. They don't come with announcements. But they are consistent, and they are undeniable if you pay attention. One of the first signs is your emotional response begins to change. Situations that used to trigger you deeply no longer have the same control over you. You don't react immediately. You don't spiral as quickly. There is a pause now, a space between what happens and how you respond. And in that space, you choose. That alone is evidence that you are no longer operating from a wounded reflex, but from a grounded awareness. Another sign is clarity in your decisions. You are no longer overanalyzing everything through fear. You don't need excessive reassurance to move forward. You trust your ability to read situations, to sense alignment, to step back when something feels off. That trust is not arrogance. It's the result of everything you've learned. You're no longer guessing your way through life. You're navigating it. You will also notice a shift in your boundaries. You become more selective, not in a defensive way, but in a discerning way. You no longer feel obligated to stay in situations that don't align with who you are becoming. You don't over-explain your decisions. You don't chase understanding from people who are not meant to understand you. There is a quiet confidence in how you move, and it doesn't need validation. And then there's your posture toward the past. It no longer controls your present. You can look back without being pulled back. You can remember without reliving. You can acknowledge what happened without letting it define what happens next. That is freedom, because now, your past is no longer something you are trying to escape. It is something you have integrated, and from that place, something powerful emerges. You begin to act from authority instead of fear. You make decisions based on alignment instead of avoidance. You move forward not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer the same person who once felt powerless. And that's the confirmation. Not that your life suddenly becomes easy, but that you have become someone who can handle it differently. So maybe it's time to release the version of you that was only meant to survive. Not because that version was weak, but because that version has already done its job. It got you through what you thought would break you. It helped you endure what you didn't understand at the time. It protected you when you needed protection, but it was never meant to lead your future. You've outgrown it, and holding on to it now doesn't keep you safe, it keeps you small. Because the life you're stepping into doesn't require survival. It requires leadership. It requires awareness. It requires someone who can manage what they carry without being controlled by what they've been through. So don't keep introducing yourself through your pain. Don't keep defining your identity through what didn't work. And don't keep shrinking to match a version of you that no longer exists. Step into who you are now. Someone who has been trained. Someone who has learned. Someone who has the awareness to choose differently and the strength to follow through. If this message spoke to you, take a moment and reflect. Where in your life are you still responding as the version of you that was hurt instead of the version of you that has grown? Share your thoughts in the comments. Someone else might be in that exact place right now. And if you're ready to move differently, stay with me. Because this is not about surviving anymore. This is about stepping into who you were always meant to become.